Well, good evening, everybody. This is Dr. Anthony van Tonder, CEO of MyWealth, and this is our IBC, our Investor Business Conference. We do this once a month on the first Thursday of every month because we would like to add value to you, and this is a special invite to anybody and everybody from the field. So for our members, that's exactly what you want to do, is invite other people to attend this IBC or Investor Business Conference. But without further ado, let me introduce our first speaker to you tonight. This speaker, very well known internationally, Rich Simmonds, is retired now, but he is still disruptive, trust me. He's the author of 2 books and he's a blogger with more than 500 articles. So very known in the international community, especially on social media. Now, Rich lives in a small town in the Alps of northern Italy with his wife, Marina. We're obviously so jealous when we hear that because I can just see the snow and I just see the conditions. Now, their original intention was to spend their days traveling around Europe, but when COVID ensued, they needed to diversify and they find other activities to keep themselves busy. Well, with these new ideas and the fresh projects, the time came for them to find a way to ensure that their financial stability was a reality. And I'm so glad they did, because they are now passing this on to other people. So this, along with the desire to help other people achieve those financial goals, is driving Rich to do what he does. Now, his approach is to go beyond strategy and beyond communication. Now, to get your attention, you need to observe and try to understand what people are doing, anticipate what they're going to do, and then get their attention dynamically. This is what Rich believes. So in essence, for you to communicate effectively, it needs to be simplified. And he challenges you, dare to be different, and the results will follow. Ladies and gentlemen, please help me welcome Rich Simmonds.
Thank you, Dr. Anthony. Thanks for that introduction. They say you should never, sorry, I've got the wrong screen here, just a moment. There we go. Right, yeah, they say you should never listen to introductions because that definitely will disrupt you. But it is something you've done already, and one of the things about disruption that you'll learn is that it's all about you, but we'll get to that. Right, so what is disruption? Many people hear the word disruption and they automatically think about destruction. It's not destructive, but it does interrupt or disrupt your thoughts so that you can do a potential change, because that's what disruption's there for. One of the things that we know about disruption is that it doesn't happen immediately. It's something that plugs into your thought process, and then because of that plugging into your thought process, at some stage it reminds you about what you know, to look inside and then decide what you want to do and how you want to change. So that's the whole essence of disruption. That's not destructive. It's something that's actually very positive that will cause change. And obviously, if you've been following us on the Success Mastermind, a lot of the ideas that you hear from me tonight will reinforce what you've heard already in the Success Mastermind. So let's get on with it. Disruption it's an active thing, so that action part comes in. You have to do or disrupt to change the status quo or to become the status quo. Depends where you want to go. So that is the interesting thing about disruption. You can change things, you can challenge the status quo, or you can become the status quo. Depends where you want to be. You know, sometimes we have this need to fit in. I'm not exactly sure why, but I understand it. So if you want to fit in, you might want to disrupt so that you can get into the status quo. This wasn't the original Apple statement, or it was actually an advert that was made in their Think Differently campaign. And I'll read it to you quickly, and I hope that I could read it with the same sort of gusto and passion that it was done in the advert. And do look up the Think Different advert, Here's to the Crazy Ones, and watch the video if you can. It's here's to the crazy ones, the misfit, the rebels, the troublemakers, the round pegs in the square holes, the ones who see things differently. They're not fond of rules and they have no respect for the status quo. You can quote them, vilify them, agree with them, glorify or vilify them. But the only thing that you can't do is ignore them, because they change things. They push the human race forward. And while some may see them as the crazy ones, we see genius, because the people who are crazy enough to think they can change the world are the ones who do. And that was something that inspired me to decide on the following. When I first created my brand for myself, I was the change maker and rule breaker. And that was like, a lot of people were change makers and in those times, and they called themselves change makers and they were quite proud of that. But no one wanted to say that they were the rule breaker. And my definition of the change maker rule breaker scenario is, you must understand the rules before you can break them and make any changes. So to be a change maker is kind of like thinking about what change is about. When you are rule breakers, you've actually understood the rules, you know what rules to break, and you know what changes to make. So it becomes a very definite idea that you have about disruption, because disruption is making those changes, to be crazy enough to think differently from the other people. It's all about perception. Perception's an interesting thing, because to change a perception, you can change behavior. That happens. You know, we can do certain things to change behaviors. We can get into repetition and do the 21-day thing, which is going to change behavior and get you into a new sort of lifestyle. But to change a perception and to change people's perception of you is almost impossible. It's not totally impossible, but it's almost impossible, because people have a perception of who you are. And often our idea is to change that perception of who people think we are. But sometimes it can work in our favor as well. And I want to give you a bit of an example. You know, it says here, and this is my quote, where it says, another person's perception of you is never wrong. It is their business to think what they want about you, because you can't change their perception. And just to give you an idea, I went into a business meeting once, and using some of the ideas that I'm going to share with you this evening, I sat in front of this client and he said to me, I want you to do the following for me. And, you know, he gave me 5 tasks, and he basically wanted me to quote on those 5 tasks. And 3 of those tasks were things that I've never done in my life before, but it was his perception that I did those things. So now imagine if I had said to him, no, that's not my speciality, please, I can only do 2 of those 5 things. He would have said, no, really, I'm not interested. Let me find someone else who could do it for me. But because I was able to accept his perception of me, I managed to get all 5 of those tasks, and we got the work. And it was actually one of my biggest contracts that I've ever had, just because I didn't challenge his perception of who I am. So that is a clue to how you can, you know, when someone wants to disrupt you, you need to understand that they will do that, okay? But ride with that perception. My friend Tim Fargo, he says, don't underestimate the power of being underestimated. So whether they think you are or think you aren't, that is not, you never ever change or try change someone's idea of who you are, because their idea of who you are is you've done something to create that idea in them. So you have to ride with it. You have to use it to your advantage as much as possible. And if you look at Tim's statement here, well, the less you say, the more they underestimate you. Always remember that. I'm going to ask you a question now, and I don't have the ability to see your answers in the chat. So what I'm going to do is ask Doc Ant to put up or tell me what you guys are saying about what you think the following thing is that comes up onto the screen. What is this that you see now? And Dr. Anth, if you could give me some feedback on the answers that are coming through there, I'd appreciate it. Thank you.
I'm just getting through to it.
Okay.
Paintbrush, Grant Johnson. Makeup brush, brush. Fani, makeup brush, paintbrush, makeup brush, makeup brush, makeup brush. Okay. It seems more or less overwhelmingly they feel this is a makeup brush. There you go.
Right. And that is very much a standard answer we get. If I now had to ask you, is there any possibility that this is something else? Now, don't say no, because that means you've got to look at the possibilities. What could this be? What else could this be? Think out of the box.
Could tune a camera lens with it.
Camera lens, okay.
Other chats are saying microphone, jet engine, a hairy thing.
Very nice.
Fingerprint duster.
Okay.
A lady's head from behind. Fountain pen, fingerprints.
Mm-hmm.
Very innovative. That's excellent to hear.
That is excellent to hear.
Food basting brush. Computer keyboard duster.
Okay, good. You see how important it is to think differently, because it allows you to have possibilities, and that's what disruption's all about. It's about the possibilities. Now I want to ask you another question. If your grandchild, young little person of, let's say, 2, where they can just talk and they're asking all those questions, and they come to you and they ask you, what is this? What is your answer?
Archaeological brush.
And the poor child will really understand that one.
A microphone, a paintbrush. It can be anything depending on how you look at it. A tool, a jet, a second time.
Right. So those are all the possibilities. Wonderful. And the child, what is your answer to the child who says to you, when they lift this up, they come to you with it and they say, what is this? What is your answer to the 2-year-old child?
Well, very clever that one mother said, well, ask the child, what do you think it is?
Absolutely.
Typical father, they put it down.
That's the right answer. Okay.
So most of them saying, what do you think it is? But I like when Eugene then Cape Town, put it down. I can see him, he doesn't want his boy to hold a paintbrush in his hand. It looks like he's going to put up mascara or something.
Yeah. And I really like the way you're thinking, because it's what do they think it is? And when we're communicating with people, it becomes so important to know what they are thinking before we give them any sort of answer. Because in life, we virtually trying to persuade someone to our way of thinking, or even worse than that, we try and manipulate them into what we are thinking so they can think like we do. And that's when conflict arrives. So what we've always got to do is find out what that person is thinking. What is their thought around whatever their question was? So otherwise, if we give them the incorrect answer, which is the incorrect answer is not necessarily what they want to hear, we suddenly become into conflict with that person. Because remember that when whatever you do that's in conflict with whatever they believe it is to be, they will defend their belief first. So you've got conflict immediately. So the easiest way is always to find out what the person's thinking is around the subject, and then you can discuss what the possibilities are. And, this could have been a tree. It could have been the microphone. It could have been an ice cream. It could have been anything. But to find out what the person is thinking is more important, because then you can then discuss and have a nice discussion about why they think it's that. And then they would possibly ask you why you think otherwise. And that obviously is the best question to get, is for you to ask them. And then if they think that they don't know, they're going to ask you. If they think they do know, they're probably not going to ask you, then you don't have to waste your time anyway. But it's so important to find out what the other person is thinking first. That is probably the
I just want to interject here and ask, because, your brother knows where you come from as a sibling. And he actually says there's a word for water, but it's not water. I think you need to elaborate a bit on that. What is he saying?
There's a word for water that is not water. Is that what my brother's saying?
That's your brother. So
right. Well, talking about perceptions, the one thing we can never change is our siblings' perception of who we are.
I think Michelle nailed it. H2O, of course.
Yeah.
It's water, but a lot of people speak about it as H2O. Okay.
Yes. Yeah. So, but that's one thing we've always got to realize, is that people will have a perception of who we are and what we think. We might have forgotten about what we think, but they never forget what we think or what we thought at that time. If you were a naughty child, your older sister is probably always going to think of you as a naughty child. No matter how successful or whatever you do, her perception is you're a naughty person. So those are the type of things we deal with, and we've got to work with them. We've got to, don't go into conflict about something that is part of another person's perception. Ride with it, work with it, and use it to your advantage. Now, this is all about communication in disruption at this moment in time. And I think actually so much of success lies in our communication. But, as it says here, a good teacher shows you where to look and not what to look at. So it's all about those questions. What questions are we asking? How are they asking the questions? And how do we answer those questions becomes even more important. It's that old thing about the importance of asking the right question at the right time. I want to tell you a little story now. And when I was slightly younger, I was an instructor at the Audi driving experience and the Volkswagen driving experience on Kyalami. And how that works is you have an instructor, and then 3 people get assigned to you for the day. They're your students for the day, and you will then impart your knowledge and teach them how to drive. High performance driving is what we used to do at Kyalami. And on this particular day, I had 3 of Charles' favorite people with me. There were 3 Afrikaans lawyers from Pretoria. And you can sort of imagine the type of person. These are kind of staunch oaks. They're very set in their ways, and they're probably, the 3 of them are going to try and impress each other of how well they drive throughout the day. And this was clearly their thinking. So when they got into the car and I was taking them on the introduction laps around Kyalami, the one guy says in his very sort of Afrikaans English accent, he says, "Yes, but if you are an instructor here, you must be a good driver." So I listen to this and I think, no, this is a good time to now say something left of center. And I say, yeah, Worm, the most important thing we've got to understand is that all men think they're good lovers and good drivers. And I leave it at that. And then there was silence in the car. And then I knew that I had disrupted them. And of course, the answer to that question is that no one's ever told them they're bad, the men who think they're good lovers and good drivers. But that's the importance of a question at the right time and how we answer it. So, you answer it kind of like in, what are they thinking? Anyway, the whole idea is, don't look for the ideas that will confirm your thinking. Rather observe and ask yourself, what has disrupted my thoughts? And this comes very much into the pattern of when someone has an idea. You know, what happens with someone has an idea, let's say you have an idea, you want to start a new business. What we normally do then is we go to our friends, you know, the friends that are less successful than us, and ask them what they think. And they'll go, oh, yeah, no, I don't know. You know, I think it's a good idea, or I don't think it's a good idea, and all those sort of things. We never actually listen to people. So what we've got to do is ask people questions and then understand what the conventional answers are going to be before we get to that. Okay. They say that there's no stupid questions. Well, I disagree. Because if you've ever watched a program like Suits or one of those law programs on TV, you know, the series, go and look at the way a lawyer asks questions. What a lawyer does is he asks a question he knows the answer to it, and that provokes an emotional response from you. When you actually don't know the answer, that's the question that you need to ask. Otherwise, if you're asking stupid questions, which is the questions you already know the answers to, all you're going to do is provoke an emotional response. You're actually not going to disrupt the person's thoughts. He's just going to be, you know, he's just going to be irritated with you. So try and ask questions and ask when the questions come your way, ask, what has it done to my thinking? Because that becomes more important than simple things that will confirm your thinking. Look for the things that will disrupt your thoughts. Often we'll watch a video, for instance, you know, a training video, someone's video, a TED talk or something like that. And we'll go, oh, we got one nugget from that. And that one nugget was something that disrupted your thoughts, something that was worthwhile. So look for the things that are worthwhile, much more important than looking for general things. There's another concept of free advice. If you've ever thought, has free advice got any advantage? Is there any value in free advice? Normally not. Free advice is normally given by lawyers who want to get you. You know, the free is like there's a hook somewhere. There's got to be a juicy worm, and you're going to think it's free, and you're going to get hooked, and then you're in for a penny, in for a pound. But the opposite of free advice, or the other side of free advice, is some honesty. And I actually tested this once. I was given a free stand on a show, and it was the leadership show, or an exhibition. It was about leadership. And they said, no, you can come and set up your banners and things there. And I thought, no, I haven't got banners. And that's kind of like a little bit too contrived for me. So what I did is it was in Sandton, and I was traveling from Pretoria on the Gautrain. So I could only basically put with me whatever I could carry. And all I did was on a piece of A4 paper, or cardboard actually, I wrote free advice on the one side. And what I did on the other side of the board, because I'd folded this A4 in half, was, or would you like to hear the truth? Because that's the difference. Advice is if people ask you for advice, they're actually asking you for what they want to hear. They're not asking you for the truth. So never tell them the truth. People don't like hearing the truth. They should hear the truth, but it's not your duty to carry the truth to them. There's other people that will do that. So always, listen to the question so that you can give the right answer. Because if people ask for advice, and if that word is there, anything around advice, do not give them the truth. They're not ready for the truth. Unless you actually want to clear with them. And you have to specifically ask someone, do you want to know the honest truth? And then they can't just say yes. You've got to actually check with them 2 or 3 times before you reveal the truth to them. Otherwise, they're not ready. They're just going to be cross, and you're going to be in conflict with it. So that's the advice and the truth. Remember, advice is what they want to hear. Most people say what everyone wants to hear. That's called advice. Few people say what is really needed to be said, and few are even bolder enough to tell the truth. So remember that. Be careful of how you deal with the truth. We know it's the truth, but remember, it's also the truth for you. It's not always the truth for them. So be careful of how you deliver the truth. Now, talking about delivering the truth, in my first book, I had to lie. And everyone said, that's a terrible thing. How could you lie in a book that you're going to push out to the world? Well, unfortunately, there's this thing called empathy. And there's one area in the book where I say that you need 5 hugs a day to be normal. And that's not the truth. It sounds okay. So, it's acceptable. It's kind of like a white lie. Statistically, to be normal, and we don't understand what normal is, that's the setting on the washing machine, but just to be normal or some sort of normality, you actually need 7 hugs a day. It just kind of like felt better if I said 5, because the possibility of getting 5 hugs in a day is far better than getting 7 hugs in a day. And if I'm
Rich, just 1 second. We can't hear you. Guys and girls, it seems like Rich has just got a temporary problem with his signal. We will get it up and running as soon as we possibly can. So we'll be back in a second. In the meantime, maybe what you want to do is, if you are with a person in the room, is to just come and discuss and say, what do you make from what you just heard? And that is that people need 7 hugs a day to basically feel included and to become part of feeling loved. And what do you think does the 5-night plan take? And it looks like Rich Simmonds is back. So Rich, over to you. Unmute yourself, Rich. Rich, we can't hear you. 1 second. Sorry about that, guys.
I think I'm back now.
Yes, Rich. Thank you so much. In the meantime, they got homework to think about. Why would they need 7 hugs a day, and what would the night plan be? So I got their minds going, but over to you. Continue.
Good, thank you. So as I was saying, in Italy, we don't struggle to get hugs. We're probably not allowed to hug people, but Italians still hug people. So getting 7 hugs a day keeps us kind of normal. If we're allowed out, and we've only been allowed out for the last 2 or a couple of days now. But so we get our hugs. But if you can't get a hug, okay, and there's other ways to get hugs. And one of the best ways to hug is to find yourself a chicken. Right. Chickens apparently give fantastic hugs. As you can see, this child's quite happy with a hug. But there's a warning, like going up to anyone, just hugging anyone or just hugging any chicken, chickens can kick. So be careful. Make friends with a chicken first and check if they want to be hugged before you just go and hug them. But try be normal. Get as many hugs as you can. I don't know if you heard, and if I was doing this session live, I would have asked you all to hug each other so that you could at least feel normal. And it is amazing, if you've never hugged before, go and do it, because it actually does make you feel better. It lifts you up emotionally. So try and get as many hugs as you can in a day, at least 7 to be normal. And that's just statistics. It's, like I said, I had to lie and put 5 in my book, but actually you need 7 a day to be normal. And I don't really know what the science is behind it, but I know it's good and feels good when you get a hug. and it does change you. So try it for yourself. You see, we need to be a bit weird because normal isn't working, in case you haven't noticed. We are, most of the time, in one way or the other, we're looking for attention. And you can argue whether that's good or bad, but, if you want to get someone into your business, for instance, or if you want to become a friend of someone, you have to get their attention. So you need to be a bit different. If you're not different, you don't look any different, how are they going to be interested in you? Then you're just going to look like everyone else. But it's sometimes just by smiling at people think we're weird. So, try to be different. Be weird in some way or other, because you will get noticed. It's all about relationships.
Rich, can I just pop in here? Because I think some words of wisdom from Schalk Boert are saying, one thing in South Africa why people don't show enough love, because when they have to hug a chicken, they're all frozen chickens. Sorry, I'll just wrap you a little bit there. Go for it.
You get a live chicken. I remember meeting a guy, and he's, when you ask people what are their dreams, and this guy's name was Vota, and his dream was to own a lot of different types of chickens. You get like fluffy ones, furry ones, ones with big tails, ones with small tails, ones with funny heads, ones with different colors. His ambition in life and his dream was to own as many chickens and different ones as he could. And I suppose, in a way, it's building a relationship. And that's what this is all about, is how are we going to be better at our relationships? Because, if you think about your relationship, if you do the same thing every day, well, you become predictable and boring. So how are you going to be different? Because it's all about relationships. Friendships, relationships, everything we do is built around that. Our success is about relationships. It's the money world and the relationship world. So how are we going to do that better? And the only way that I can think of is if we're different, because then we don't become predictable. I think the worst thing that you could ever be is predictable. If you've always driven this way to work, drive a different way. Then, at least you'll be disrupting yourself, if no one else. So look at your relationships and be different. If you've always bought flowers, maybe it's time to buy chocolates. And I won't go into why we buy flowers and why we buy chocolates. That's not the sort of forum for that. But we could always have another discussion about that one day. And just reminding you that, remember that you're looking for some sort of agreement with person, because if you can't be in agreement with them, you're in conflict with that person, because it's only when you align yourself with that person that they can see your point of view and they could potentially make the choice that you want them to make. Because we always try to persuade people in one way or the other. So make sure that you're not saying things or asking them questions that's going to cause them to be in conflict with you. So listen and hear what they want to say. It's all about change. Change is a great thing. Change causes us to be successful. And if we can't change, we can't be successful. So what I would like to do now is remind you that you'll never get a second chance to make a first impression. It's very difficult to change those perceptions. It's very, very difficult to do that. So rather think about the first impression you're going to make. Are you going to come across as the person who is simply gray, without personality, without anything, they're actually not even going to notice you make such a bad impression? Or will you have something that will make an impression where people go, that's different, that person's different, that woman or that man is different, I would like to know more about them? Then you've got their attention. Now, it's all about, can you do things differently? You might have heard me say this before, but we all think, but do we think about what we think about when we think? So when you're thinking about being different, give it some real thought. don't just do the first thing and then think about what it's going to do to the person and how it's actually going to disrupt them. How are they going to notice you when you do the things, when you ask the questions, when you listen? And we'll come to that in a moment. How are you going to think about the things you're going to do? So what matters to people? Because, we can think we want to get their attention in one way or the other, but what actually matters to them? And if Bruce von Horn says the following, people will buy you, your product or service if they sense your desire is to solve their problem rather than just to sell them something. So always remember this, and we all entrepreneurs and we all leaders. So remember that an entrepreneur is there to solve someone's problem. That's what you're there for. So ask yourself, not what problem of yours or mine that I'm solving when I approach people, but how can I help other people? How can I solve their problems? Because if they can sense that my intention is to solve their problems, that becomes their perception of me. And isn't that quite a nice perception that you've just created in that person? Because they have found your truth, and your truth that you want to tell them is going to solve their problem. That's what it's all about. So what is success? And if I had to ask you, there's one factor that contributes to 80% of your success. What would that be? Let's hear the answers that come through. What contributes to 80% of your success? And as I tell people, I was never very good at school. And boy, if I got 80%, then I thought I was clever. So I think if I can reach 80% very easily in the road to success, I've achieved something. What is it?
Rich, the answer's coming in. Success is purpose-filled, mindset, what you believe in, attitude, helping the next person.
Mm-hmm. What is one factor that contributes 80% to your success?
What about good listening?
That's it. Good listening. 80% of your success is based on how you can listen. So let's have a look at listening. There are 3 levels of listening. This is probably the most hidden part in any psychology that you'll ever find. The 3 levels of listening. Firstly, people will tell you what you want to hear. Then, if you've listened enough, they'll tell you what they want to tell you. So in other words, when they start telling you things, it's the perception of who you are and what will impress you. People like what we're doing here, we always try to perceive to, impress someone. We're trying to get their attention. So what we want to do is tell them what they want to hear. So whether you asking the question or if you're just listening, they will always tell you what you want to hear. And how we understand this is that most people know that you haven't got too much time to listen to them because they've actually never been listened to properly. Let's say Doc Anthony and I meet for a cup of coffee, and we sort of the idea is that we've booked out an hour. So in other words, if we've booked out an hour, and even if we haven't stated it, there's that sort of unwritten rule that this is possibly an hour's meeting, because if Michelle had to ask Doc Anthony, you're going to meet with Rich, how long is that going to take, and when can we go shopping after? It said it'll probably take an hour. Okay, so in our minds, we have an idea that this meeting, whenever we meet, it's going to take an hour. Okay, so in other words, in all things being equal, and this is where we always go wrong as well, is we think we need to talk for half an hour and Doc Anthony needs to talk for half an hour. So what if you're going to split this into real time, they will tell you what you want to hear for half an hour. Now, if you disrupt them and tell them, no, just carry on talking, tell me more, okay, then they're going to start telling you what they wanted to tell you. That's why so often when we meet people, we walk away and we go, what is that about? I didn't really know what they said. They didn't say much. Why? Because we could have been listening to ourselves. Because all they're doing is telling us what we want to hear. Now, if we move into the next time period, okay, we've shown them an immense amount of respect because we want to listen to them. And that's because we want to listen to them and we show that we're able to listen and we're listening properly, they now start to tell us things. And then, of course, if we really listen properly, they're going to start telling us things that they never thought they were going to tell us. So here might come out their needs, their emotional state, etc. Things that you can possibly actually help them with, because the secrets that they tell you are never actually secrets. They're just things that it's really deep and close to them, that are important to them. But they need to trust you. They need to feel that they can talk to you and tell you those things that are important. So those are the three levels of listening. Now, there's a key to how you unlock this, and it's listen like a grandmother. In Afrikaans, it's luister soos ouma. And what does grandmother do? How does grandmother listen to you? What is, think about your gran and how she listens to you, and how you will actually potentially tell her everything that happens in home because she listens properly. But there's a style, there's a way that Granny listens that no one else listens. How does Granny do it? Has anyone got any idea of how Granny listens?
Goes down to the level of the child. Granny engages and asks questions with her heart. Repeat what you said.
She does. And there's something that she says often as well that becomes very sort of a key to how she unlocks things. What does she say?
Well, answers here again. She takes time to listen. She pays full attention with empathy, takes great interest. Yep. Yes, and tell me more.
Tell me more.
With you. That's right.
Tell me more. So remember that, you don't have to use those same words when you're listening to people, but make sure that you're encouraging them like Granny encourages the child and she shows empathy and she does all those things that you guys have mentioned. But the important thing is engage and show that you're interested. Let them tell you more. Tell you more. Granny has never heard enough. She's not interested in what she's going to tell you. She's interested in what you are telling her. So she wants more and more and tell me more. That's the process. So remember that. This is where the difference comes in our communication, is if you can listen like a grandmother, you can improve your communication 100%. Remember, who are you actually disrupting? And you disrupting you. It's for you. It's your benefit. You are changing because of the disruption that happens around you. And the more you can listen, the more you can implement these things, the easier change is going to be, because you're going to notice the things. When you're trying to change yourself, or you trying to make yourself better so that you can get attention from others, you're also noticing others and the attention that they're seeking from you. So as a teacher, you learn from what the others are doing. And disruption gives you that perfect opportunity to learn, because you're actually disrupting you. Then just remember, there's the old thing. Do you want to be right, or do you want to be kind? You can't be kind of right. You've either got to be right or kind. That's emotional intelligence 101. Do you want to be right, or do you want to be kind? Always remember that in whatever you do. And that's me for this evening. Thanks very much, ladies and gentlemen. I do hope that you've enjoyed what I've put over to you. And if there's time, we can do some questions.
Yes, Rich. Let me start on behalf of the people, because obviously people have been typing to me. Perfect. And they would like to know which two books did you author, because obviously I heard last night you said somebody wrote one book as a writer, but you're an author because you got two books. So
Yes.
they want to know what is number one, the title of the book, a brief synopsis of what it covers, and what is the price, and then how can they obtain it? Over to you.
All right. So the first book I wrote was 5-Night Plan. It's a very easy book. It's meant to basically, the idea of the book was you could pick it up, and on your way to Cape Town, if you read relatively slowly, you could finish the book in the 2-hour flight. That's the idea. And the whole idea is to bring communication back into your relationship. So whether you're a brand new relationship, whether you are been married for 40 years, it's a plan that gives you, if you commit to it, you will improve your relationship communication. And you'll probably become a lot closer, because obviously if you're communicating better, you're going to become a lot closer in your relationship. So that book they're both available on Amazon. I'll try and get you the links to those books and share them on the groups if you don't mind. And then the second book was a book called Mug and Tweet, which is about social communication. It's not necessarily about social media, but it's social communication and understanding how we communicate as people. And, because we're social animals, we're here to interact and understand each other. And that's what the book is about. And then it does sort of go into social media. And it's probably a little bit outdated now, because the book was written about 7 years ago now. So both of those books were actually written in the same year. And so that was what the books are. And yeah. Since then, I think my blogs are more relevant.
I think the underlining is the visual impact. So you just don't mind, quickly show us Mug and Tweet. I know that you have it very close by.
Yeah, I've got a picture of Mug and Tweet on the end of the slides there, actually. So that was Mug and Tweet. And then you saw the 5-Night Plan.
100%. Okay, Rich, so if you don't mind, obviously send the links where people can acquire these books for themselves, because obviously I think what you have done tonight is disrupt our thinking, disrupt the way that we maybe approach things, and that's really what it's about. So on behalf of all the people, I'd like to sincerely thank you. Thank you for shaking our feathers a bit. I have that picture in my mind of Wouter and all his chickens, I promise you, because we obviously know Wouter as well. And this guy used to blush red when he spoke about his chickens, but he stood publicly and said, my dream is to have various kinds of chickens. And he stood his ground. That really takes courage. So what I'd like to say to you is, may we not chicken out to find that being disruptive sometimes will take us next level. So from behalf of all of us, I'd like to thank you sincerely. And from anybody else with a burning question for Rich, then I can just translate through to him. Just a lot of thank yous popping up on the screen, Rich. I just want to say everybody is very good. I just had Eugene said, when he said how Granny got everybody to talk by, tell me more. He says, you got it wrong. In his days, you didn't talk, you listened to Granny.
Yeah, I had a grandfather like that, but then I met other people's grandmothers, and it was amazing how they could listen. So
fantastic. Okay, Christian, thank you. Then it's always good to conclude. It's just when we're done, we're done. So everybody, you will get the links from Rich, and obviously we will make it available as well on the group, because I think it's for the core leadership group, because especially this is an investor business conference for a person that says, how do the people in MyWealth think? How do they think about life? And it all starts with the way that tonight we were taught is that we have a disruptive way of thinking. We don't necessarily think and do business like all other people do. We do business differently. But I'm going to put Skulk on the spot and ask him to just wrap up what he heard tonight. And after Skulk, I will introduce our next speaker. So, Rich, thank you so much. Skulk, over to you.
Thanks very much.
Good evening. Thank you very much, Rich. It was a good kop krapper, soos hulle sê. head scratcher for those who are foreign. Yeah, I think it's very necessary for us all to take that on board and disrupt our own patterns. And one thing that struck me was that you said that your book is 7 years old and it's already outdated. It just shows also that the world that we're living in is moving so fast and it's disrupted so easily and so quickly that to stay with the times and to stay relevant, we have to be on a journey of disrupting ourselves on a regular basis and be willing to listen and be willing to learn and be willing to change and be willing to change direction and change course to stay relevant. So very good stuff. I've really listened closely and took it to heart. Thank you very much for your time. Everybody who's listening as well, thank you very much for joining in. I think we're in for a nice treat now also next. Over to you, Doc.
Thank you so much, Carl. Right, guys, now for the next treat tonight, we have got two powerhouses speaking to us tonight. And the next person, no stranger to some of us, but I can tell you that she's had a career in retail, and in that career took her time to coach people to the next level. In that process, learned how to make money and help other people make money. And ensuing a career of training, coaching, educating, and equipping other people. I'm speaking about our guest speaker next that then became a trainer for John Maxwell. In fact, she was the trainer for John Maxwell Africa. So anybody that wanted to become a John Maxwell trainer had to go through her master training. And then she also became the same for Robert Kiyosaki and the same for Blair Singer. So Michelle's passion is truly to help other people become better people. And her focus is on leadership, and it's always leadership through practical application. In fact, it's called leadership action through practical application. There's no ways, if you are sitting in her class, that you are not moved to take action. But she makes it practical in a way. But I think her biggest accolade to success today is the fact that she's got 4 beautiful children, and she is the proud grandmother of 10 grandchildren. And by the way, she puts up with me. So for that, she is an iron lady. So over to our next speaker, Dr. Michelle van Tonder.
Hi there. Thank you very much. I really appreciate it. So one of the exciting things that I need to realize is I need to actually ask Ant to mute his computer because we're having some feedback here. There we go. All right. Now I need to make sure that you guys can hear me as well. So let's make sure that, okay, great. So as Anne said, my greatest accolade, I would say over and above having a PhD or anything else like that, is being a grandmother of 10. So Rich, I totally know how to get a lot of information out of my grandchildren. And it's amazing when you're sitting there nodding and saying, tell me more and ask me. And you have those big interested eyes and you're listening and you lean in. Oh my goodness, it's amazing how much you actually get. Awesome. So it is exciting. Now, Rich and I did not chat about anything today. I have heard Rich's presentation that he's just given to us now for the first time. And there's some amazing things that Rich alluded to through his presentation on the relationship with disruption and how that key links in to finding your own purpose. So this evening, I'm going to be going through and sharing with you what it is and how I also processed and have helped a few other people process how to find your purpose, because looking for your purpose is something that is disruptive. It's disruptive to you. It's disruptive to the people around you, because some people see you completely differently and they'll have a completely different perspective on where they think you should be going, especially parents when they don't understand where they're guiding their children. And invariably, parents have a tendency, more than likely, and I'm not generalizing, I'm saying have a tendency, some of them, clearly none of the 82 of us that are on this call tonight, but there are some out there that want to live their lives through their children because they feel they've missed out. And not everybody that I've met has learned how, even though we've done purpose things before and try to process our purpose before, not all of us have nailed down what our purpose is, and we're still living in spaces where we're not sure what the difference is between a calling and a job and a purpose and all those kind of things. So what we're going to look at this evening is how a good way to actually just process going through and trying to find out where do you fit in. And please feel free as we go through, ask the questions. Doc will read them out. He'll stop me, and I don't mind answering as we go through the presentation rather than all the questions at the end. But if I'm going to get to something and you're ahead of me, I'm definitely going to say to you guys, hey, hold on a second, that point is coming up. All right, so let's make sure that we have this. Please grab your pen and notebooks, because if you weren't taking screenshots of what Rich was sharing, then you've lost the plot, and then you're going to have to watch the recording again. And so I'm just going to suggest grab a pen and paper. Guys, pen and paper for our generation is still probably the most important way of learning, and reason being is because that's how we were taught to learn. We were taught to learn with pencil. All right. Do you remember going back to school and you couldn't get, until your writing was nice and neat, you couldn't go to pen? All right. Those really, we're showing our age now. I do get it. But like I said, I've got 10 grandchildren, so I'm allowed to show my generational gap that I've got between some of my grandchildren going to school with tablets nowadays. And I have a passion for writing. Calligraphy is one of my things. And I have a thing that maybe our children are going to forget how to write. That's very scary for me. That's very scary for me. But let's share screen. Let's kick this off, and let's make sure that we all are on the right track here. And I don't want to. Okay, I can see. Ant, can you see my PowerPoint sharing screen? Not yet.
Yes,
Oh, have I done that already? Okay, cool. Right, I'm not too afraid on how to actually do all of this with a webinar. So this is a new learning curve for me as well. So let's go for it. Okay, so we're going to be looking at how we can actually find our purpose. What is it that we're going to be going through? So finding your purpose, or in actual fact, it's about finding the reason to live. And most of us don't realize that we need to actually understand that we all have a purpose, and we've all been given a purpose. So purpose is where you and I find meaning to what we do every single day, why we get up in the morning, why we're excited, why we have high energy levels as opposed to low energy levels. So purpose is where you and I find meaning. It also helps us to discern what we want to do and where we want to contribute. And this is the importance of realizing that purpose certainly can be linked to your job and career. However, many people don't find their purpose in their workplace. So if I take myself, for example, I got into the retail environment. My purpose was most certainly not to stay in the retail environment. I also remember my grandmother had a doctor that did an operation on her, and the doctor was living the father's dream to be a doctor, and he hated waking up every single morning and going to be a doctor or a surgeon. And he actually was very careless, and he left a small pair of scissors inside my grandmother close to her spine, which eventually fused to her spine and gave her endless trouble, and eventually they couldn't do anything about it. But you see, if we're not living our purpose and we're not finding where our purpose is, we too can become in a place, in a space where we no longer want to actually do what it is that where we wake up in the morning to do, and we can become careless. So it is important for us to realize that we need to ask ourselves the question, why should we discern what our purpose is? So I've said, given you a few reasons, but there's two reasons. And one of them, Rich alluded to in his presentation as well, is why we should actually spend time looking and finding purpose. And we find that your purpose is going to be discovered in one of two places. And the first place, which Rich alluded to, is to solve a problem. Your purpose has been given to you to either solve a problem or to make something better. Now, God in his wisdom has actually designed you. If you go back to the scripture, he says that you were perfectly knitted in your mother's womb. So if any of you remember your grandmother's knitting, gosh, grandmothers are really having a topic day today. But if you remember your grandmother knitting, and when she knitted, she didn't just sit there and knit. She probably first of all read a pattern, a design, a description of what she wanted to create. Then she followed those instructions step by step by step. And if she made a mistake, she pulled it out. She didn't just leave the mistake there. So by the time the product, whatever it was, a jersey or a blanket or whatever it might have been that she was sitting knitting, it was designed with an intention for an outcome. And there were the right tools, the right material was used to create the outcome. So if you think about it, you and I were knitted in our mother's room. So God took time to create the pattern for you and I, which means that God has ordained and designed you and I to solve either a specific problem or make something better. And what is exciting is when you discover your purpose might not be to go and impact hundreds of thousands of people. And because people think that they don't have a purpose that's going to go and impact a large multitude of people, they don't go and try and find their purpose. Take, for example, a mum who's a stay-at-home mum. She takes her children to nursery school, and she finds 4 ladies that she starts speaking to, and she's helping them cope with their children, cope with the life of being a stay-at-home mom, cope with everything. Her purpose could be a calling just for those 4 ladies. So when we look at your purpose has been designed not for everyone. It's for a certain group of people. And also, your purpose is designed for a season. Some people's season could be from the time they discover their purpose till the time they pass away. Some could be, their purpose could be to fulfill something for only a year. It could be for 6 months. So seasons will come and seasons will go. So in our wisdom, we need to remember, we need to understand that sometimes we need to have the wisdom to walk away from a purpose because the next one is going to evolve. And so it's so important for us to make sure that we tuned in to our purpose and also the discovery of our purpose and where we are in our purpose. One of the things that I have learned when you are speaking to people that your purpose should fulfill, you'll know when that is up. You'll find that people start tolerating you versus celebrating you. And so when you find that the people are tolerating you, you know that your season is over and it's time for you to move on, because we need to be in a space where we are being celebrated all the time. Okay. So one thing we need to understand is staying connected to your purpose or to your why or to your reason is so important. We need to stay connected to it. So the reason why we stay connected to it is so that we can survive the ups and downs as we go through the being rejected by people, being accepted by people, going out and finding what your purpose is, discovering what it is, fine-tuning it, and staying connected is so important. So what I'd like to suggest is that once you start thinking about what your purpose is, it's time to start perhaps writing down a purpose statement. And make sure your purpose statement is in front of you every single day to create that consistency of why you get up in the morning. What is the reason for getting up in the morning, for doing what you're doing, and that kind of thing. So if there's any questions, Doc will pass them on to me as we're going through this. But it is so important to realize that once you've created your purpose statement. So my purpose statement, for example, I went and sat down and started writing out things, and I've edited it and all the rest of it. So mine would be, I want to create an affordable product that I can sell to millions of people to help them live a better life, emotionally, socially, physically, financially, and spiritually. And so it's important for me my most important thing was affordable. And as I go through this, I'll share with you where this and how this actually came into being for me. So what I want you to do now is, on a piece of paper, I want you to draw some circles. This is not the Olympics. This is how we're going to discover our purpose. So write down, fill in some, draw up these 4 circles nicely for yourselves. And then we're going to start saying, okay, how do I start processing, finding out where and my purpose starts, how it starts, especially for those of us who haven't started our purpose. And also, if you do have a purpose, going through this again might just say, hold on a second, do I have to tweak something? Do I have to evolve? Do I have to grow into something new with regards to our purpose? When you're going through this process, I'm going to suggest, please don't rush it. Take your time as you're going through this process. 30 days is good. 30 days to spend some time going through the purpose. Some people will finish it quickly, but just go through it nice and steadily, and make sure that battery's running low, because I got it all sorted out here. It's a good thing, otherwise I would have lost you somewhere along the line. All right, let's keep going. Thank you. Husband has solved the problem. That's why we are married. Okay, so you've got your circles. The first thing you're going to write down is everything that you love. What do you love? Also, you might love walking the dogs, for example, and your husband hates walking the dogs. Don't force other people into what you love, all right? Just write down everything you love. You love the color blue. You love this. You love that. I'm not saying who you're in love with, but what do you love? So write everything that you do that you love doing. You're going to spend 30 days, because when you're writing the list, sometimes you panic and you don't understand, perhaps, I've left this out, and 2 days later you will start filling in something. So write down what you love. In the other circle on the left-hand side there, you're now going to go and fill in what you're good at. What are you good at? And list everything. Now, if you're stuck at that, listen to the people around you. Listen to how people compliment you for doing something. Too often we don't accept compliments coming our way because our self-belief is quite low. And I want you in the next 30 days to really listen to somebody said, oh gosh, you're really good at that, and you really do this nicely, or thank you for doing that. Write all of that down in that section of what you're good at. Even if you don't believe it yourself for now, it is important for you to list everything. Now, as you're going through this process, the next thing you're going to start looking at is what the world needs. In other words, what and how do you want to serve the world? What breaks your heart? Write that down in that particular circle, or you can make them lists if you want. You don't have to put circles, but there's a reason why they're circles, and you can see them all overlapping. But what is important is, we know the world needs food. We know there's hunger. We know there's water. We know that people need to learn about financial intelligence. We know there's a whole lot of things that we know what the world needs. Go and list them. But then I want you to highlight what breaks your heart. So I'll give you an example of, and many of us will remember this, the gentleman who won the Pulitzer Prize for the photograph. And the photograph was the vulture looking over the child, and the starving child in whatever country it was. And, when people look at that, sometimes that really breaks people's hearts. And on the other hand, others would look at the same picture, but it doesn't break their heart. It doesn't mean they don't care. It just means they're not called to feed the poor, or called to go and put water in those areas. They've got something else they need to go and fulfill. And so we need to really dig deep into this one on God has put something inside you. God's put something that's really important that only you have been called to go and fill that need. And it's time for us to go and process what that is. Now I'm going to start challenging a few mindsets right now, and I'm now going to be extremely disruptive. Okay, and that is, write down what you can be paid for. Okay, what you can get paid for. And so, for example, I could get paid for my teaching. I can get paid to, I don't know, whatever it is that you can get paid to do. All right. Write it down and keep it above board, everybody. But write down everything that you literally could get paid for. Okay. Now you've got your 4 circles. What we need to look at now is that in between the love and what you're good at, that is where your passion lives. So when you're passionate about something, it's what you love and what you're good at. And what lives in between what you love and what the world needs, that's your mission. Then we're going to have a look at what we're good at, all right? And what you get paid for would fall into the career category. All right. Now, not everybody is good, but they're getting paid for the jobs. And I'm seeing that in where we are right now. And it's a little bit frustrating. But generally speaking, we need to know many people, all right, will realize that they are good at something and they are getting paid for it. And that's their career. And they love waking up in the morning and going to go and do that. All right. Then what lives between what you can get paid for and what the world needs is your calling. Now, your calling, and this is the disruption, everybody. We so often hear the saying, if it is God's will, he will fit the bill. And when I've seen people who say that statement, they generally sit on the couch waiting for God to fit the bill so that they can then go out and fulfill their calling. And I'm going to challenge that and say, you cannot expand God's kingdom and God's work and the things that God wants because it needs to be funded. And so that is where I think MyWealth comes in absolutely phenomenally, because we're able to create a vehicle that will create an income so that you can go out and fulfill your calling. And by doing that, you're getting paid for it. Whereas most people that go out, and we've all seen it with missionaries, they've got to spend hundreds of thousands of hours trying to raise funds to go and do what they're doing. And now if we really seriously look at all of this and we say to ourselves, hold on a second, sustainability in our mission, a sustainability in our calling, sustainability in our purpose, sustainability is the most important thing. And if we can't create the sustainability, then we are going to give up on our purpose and think that that's not for us. Yes, God will step in and God will meet you where you're at. And yes, he can create amazing miracles for people, but it's in general, it's a handful of people that this happens to, whereas others are battling and battling and battling where they're going to find their next meal. And that's why I just absolutely passionately love the MyWealth system. And if you go back to the scriptures, Paul had a calling, he had a mission, he had a career, he had a passion, and it all meant together, and it was his purpose. And he was a tent maker. All right. He didn't rely on everybody giving him money to go and live out his calling that Christ had called him to do. So we really need to look at that and see what it is that we got. So when we put all of this together, we must understand that in the middle is where it all meets. And when you get to the sweet spot of processing all of this, you're able to look at that and say, oh my gosh, this is where I now know my calling. So what we're going to make sure that we're doing your homework for the next 30 days is make a list in each of these blocks. What do you love doing? What are you good at? What does the world need specifically? And in the area where it breaks your heart, what can you be paid for? And we know that we're creating our wealth so that we can create and go and make sure that we end up living and our passion, our purpose can continue on a daily basis. Then make a list of the people, and this is where you now can identify where your calling is, because when you're processing this or your purpose, you might think you've got 3 or 4 of them, and you may have 3 or 4 of them, but make a list of the people who inspire you within the area of what you wanted to do. So let's say, for example, it is feeding the poor. Somebody who's really good at that is Tony Robbins. Now, do you think Tony Robbins has created the wealth enough to go and fund his own purpose, which is feeding the poor? He's out there. One of his purposes is making sure that he changes people's lives. He's got another purpose, which is what breaks his heart. Okay, so that's his mission side of it. And so when he puts it all together, but he funds it very well. He does, sometimes people will donate to his cause and all the rest of it, but he provides food for hundreds of thousands of children as they go through. So make a list. You would put him there. Then what I want you to do is go and investigate the pros and cons of that person that inspires you in that area. So whoever it might be, in whatever it is that you want to do, make a list. And when I made my list, first of all made my purpose statement, and I made my list of the pros and cons, I realized that everybody out there that is doing personal growth, that is doing all these amazing things like your John Maxwell's and like your Tony Robbins and Robert Sharma's and all that, they are so expensive. The average person cannot afford. I mean, I have spent, and Anthony has spent, hundreds of thousands of rands in the personal growth and development that we've done. And so many people don't go on that journey because they simply can't afford it. All right. So make a list, pros and cons, and that's how come I came up with, and I adapted my mission statement to say an affordable product for everybody. All right. So investigate and look at it. What do you like about them? What don't you like about them? What inspires you about them? List all of that down. Then write a mission statement down for yourself. Write yourself a purpose statement. Write it down, and you can tweak it as you go and see how that goes, and put it in front of you so that when you wake up in the morning, you will see that every single day and see how it energizes you. How passionate are you about what you've written down? All right. Ignoring one or more of these circles is going to be a recipe for dissatisfaction. Okay, so many people think they've got their purpose, they leave out the finances, and then they get very despondent. And an area of that would be a pastor, for example. Okay, so those are your circles. That is what you're going to be looking at. I really recommend you just take a quick photograph of that, or if you've written it down, and start the process as we're going through to make sure that your mission statement is written down. And please remember, it's a starting point if you haven't already started that. All right. So how do you know? How do you actually know that you found your purpose? All right. Well, you're going to go through, and what I would suggest, if let's say it's feeding the poor is one of them, and I don't know, teaching could be another one, for example, and your teaching could be to young adults, or your teaching could be to teenagers, or it could be to a certain community, whatever it might be. What I suggest you do is go and do that purpose. Go and see how it is. Now, feeding the poor for me is not my purpose, but do I go and feed the poor every now and again? Absolutely. And then, but what I do is I make sure that I manage my energy level. All right. It's so important, because you will know you are living your purpose by your energy level. So my energy level after training, coaching, mentor is extremely high. All right. And I'm energized. In fact, I used to do children counseling, and a lot of counseling with children. You can ask Anthony, when I'd come back home, I was exhausted, absolutely exhausted and drained. And that's when I realized, can I counsel? Yes. Is it my purpose? No, it's someone else's. So manage your energy level. Notice the level of your gratitude, the gratefulness you feel after being able to go and do whatever your purpose is. So that's how you will know you're living your purpose. How do you choose between your purposes or your different paths? Definitely pray, spend time asking, guiding, meditate. All right. Meditate on, in other words, just find a nice quiet place. Do your thinking. Rich says it's so nasty. I can't think that you're thinking, that whatever you're thinking is you're thinking. All right. And just manage your thinking. So listen to Rich on that one. Just go and meditate with your thinking and process that. Again, I've mentioned energy levels. Your energy levels, God has given you a barometer within your own body to tell you what you like and you don't like. All right. So listen to that. Then again, talk to those that inspire you. I remember one of the lessons I learned from John Maxwell was so simple. And he said, whenever he wanted to learn something from somebody that inspired him, or a mentor, he would make an appointment with them, either for a lunch or for a breakfast, never a dinner, a lunch or a breakfast. He would go and pay for it. He made sure that he said he would like to ask them a few questions. Most mentors will accept that. And when you get there, respect the time that you, like Rich said, an hour. Don't go longer than an hour, guys. Respect that time. Make sure that you understand and you've done your homework on the mentor, whoever you're going to go and sit with. And I remember to such a detail that John would know exactly what cool drink they would drink. So if it was Coca-Cola, the moment that person sat down, the Coke was brought to the table. He didn't have to wait for that person to order what they wanted to drink. Okay, so you really do your homework and respect time when you're spending with your mentors. And the reason being, and I speak so passionately now about time, is that God's given you and I two gifts. The first gift he gave us was his son, Jesus Christ. The second gift he gave us was the gift of time. And what we need to realize is that this gift, you and I are going to be held accountable to the hours that we have wasted and used unproductively. And so these gifts, this gift of time is respecting other people's time. Respect the time you've been given. Guys, really honestly make sure that you understand what your time is. Most of us only talk about an average of 8 hours we work every single day, and 8 hours we work and 8 hours we sleep. But very few of us speak about the other 8 hours. And so when we think about our time, we're spending time only thinking of 16 hours. What are you doing with the other 8 hours? We waste those 8 hours. So be conscious. If you decide you're going to watch television, make that a conscious decision. I'm going to go and watch TV. But don't waste those other 8 hours doing absolutely nothing. Time is so important that when God created the earth, he created it in time frames, and his creation was working 6. And we are so bad in saying that he created the earth in 7 days. No, he didn't. He created the earth in 6 days, and he gave 1 day rest, which makes 7 days. So it's actually 6 plus 1. So when we're working through our day, I should say every 6 hours, I need an hour break. It's 6 plus 1. Every time that in all of us, throughout the week, it doesn't have to be Sunday. It could be, let's say if you're a pastor, you're working Sundays. So then Monday you must have your plus 1. So it's 6 days you work, 6 days you create, 6 days you spend in that time. And in every 60 minutes, all right, take a few minutes break. Don't try and work solidly for 6 hours. Take 60 minutes. And look at that 60 minutes and then have 10-minute break. Get up, go, and you'll be so much more productive. So gosh, that's me and time. You can see how passionate I am about time. Okay, what if my purpose changes? If you're spending time in prayer and meditation and understanding your energy levels, then you will know when your purpose changes. All right, you'll be aware of it and you'll know the season is coming to an end. How do I make time for my purpose? Well, I've just spoken about time. Quite a lot in detail, but yes, make sure that you've got that time sorted out. And if you're working and you're trying to discover your purpose, then spend 30 minutes a day going through this whole process. And then on a Saturday or a Sunday, go and try feeding the poor or whatever it is that you do. Try a little bit, a couple of hours here, see how you feel. If it's a Sunday school teacher or whatever it might be, go and practice it, put it into practice. And then how do I know when I have fulfilled my purpose? Well, all of us will know when we fulfilled our purpose, our energies are going to be up. We wake up with purpose. We wake up singing in our hearts. I know Anthony wakes up with a song every single morning. It's quite amazing when I know and then I know, he's in his sweet spot. He's fulfilling his purpose. And that's what I know when he's in that area. Okay, where do I start? We'll start with the lists. Okay, start with those lists. Start in that very beginning. All right. So I know Anthony's been typing. Before we continue, I'm going to stop right there. Are there any questions in the chats? Anthony, do you want me to answer anything? Yeah, meditation is very good for our bodies. It's good for our souls. It's good for everything that we do. Could I please ask you to type in something that was refreshing for you this evening? If you don't have a question, could you please type in for us something new and fresh that you might have learned this evening? Before I continue, I'm just going to stop share for a second. Let's see. All right.
Your purpose is seasonal. Speak about that.
Did you say speak about? Your purpose is seasonal.
One comment was that your purpose is seasonal. I'd like to hear Michelle's take on that.
Awesome. Yes, your purpose is definitely seasonal, and it is important for us to know when that season is over. God has created, God says, look at my creation and learn from it. And yeah, thanks, Rich. 6 + 1 and how to use your time efficiently. Everything. He says, look at my creation. So if God has given us in his wisdom seasons, we know the winter seasons, the summers, we know the seasons, and every season has a beginning and every season has an end, which means that, like I said in the beginning, your season could be from the day you discover your purpose to the day that you pass away. All right. And you go and you end up being with him. That could be your season. So, but then all the way through that time frame, you're going to have high energies. You're going to be just the best person of you, because that's what God has given to you. But when you start waking up and you're going to, oh, you know what, I've just got to go and meet those people again, and I don't feel like it today, then you must know your season is coming to an end in that one. And then ask God to show you, how do I gracefully hand over the baton, all right, which now leads to duplication. Have I done the right thing? Have I left a successor? And will that purpose, who is going to fill it when I move on from there? And then move on, going from there. Good. I'm glad you like the practical advice.
The next question is your purpose your dream?
Dreams, dreams are dreams, and God will probably, more than likely, in his word, he tells us that he will give us dreams, and that would probably be a starting point. If you're dreaming about something, then what I would suggest you do is go and write down, take that dream, write it down, and then go and fill in these. What do I love? What do I does it break my heart in an area? And then go and fulfill that, and go and try and see. Because if you don't have the energy behind it, and you don't, because remember, too many people that are out there living out their purpose and their mission and giving God a bad name because their energies are so low. It's because they haven't moved on. They haven't passed the baton on. They haven't raised the next generation. Succession planning in leadership and in everything is so important. That's why you and I were given children, for succession planning. And if you haven't succession planned your kids, you have a problem. All right. So yes, go and do that. So I hope that answers the dream. Start there, make that your starting point, and then work it from there, and then go and fulfill it from there. But a dream will stay a dream without action. So put it all into action, because if you keep dreaming about it, you can't go fulfill your purpose, because your purpose is an action generated activity. All right. Because it's about God's kingdom. It's important to get into motion. Don't overthink things. 100%. So there we go. Rich has put it so eloquently. I mean, it's not. It's important to get into motion. All right, and that is what it is all about. Go look at God's creation. Every plant, every tree, every blade of grass gets up and grows every day. Look at His creation. That's what it does. It evolves. It grows. And you look, when a forest gets burnt down, it comes back, all right, because it's in motion, it's moving. Sylvia, 6 + 1, I like that. Thank you. Important. The idea of being accountable is awesome. Yeah, accountability is the thing that actually keeps us going and keeps us in motion. You're speaking to the number one person who hates accountability, all right? Oh, you must know I hate accountability. But it's all to do with my personality profiling, and I know it's something that I have to do right now. I am on an eating plan and I'm trying to lose weight and I have to be accountable to this lady and I'm going to send her photographs and I hate it. But you know what? I know I need to do it because accountability is the most important thing for all of us, okay, to grow. How do you measure if you found your purpose through your energy? Yeah, absolutely, Sylvia. It's so important. That energy is so I just love teaching. Okay, I have enough time to create and develop another purpose. Awesome. Yes, that's exactly. I think it's spelled Ikigai, which is the Ikigai. All right. Thank you. Don't rush the process. Yes, Fernando, don't rush the process. You know, all of it, because we end up doing nothing because we're trying to rush it. Okay. And again, in active confusion will always lead to inactivity. So if you slow down to go fast, all right, that's how it all works. It's all about bringing it back to a central point, writing it down. I mean, I carry my book with me everywhere. All right, there's my book, and I write down. And you know what? Every time, even in my book here, and I make sure it fits. It's a size that can fit into my handbag. And when I go places and I'm you know, that I get that, another word for breaking your heart is a holy discontentment. And I get this irritation about something and I know, or something around me is not working. Something's irritating me. I write it down because maybe God's irritating my spirit because he might say, Michelle, you got to go and fix that. All right. Then I write it down and then I take this whole process. Am I good at what I've written down? Am I the person that can solve this problem? Because remember, it's all about solving a problem or making something better. The only reason why you and I are in flying airplanes nowadays is because of the Wright brothers, and somebody went and made it better. Thank goodness somebody made the Titanic better as well. Okay. Good. I'm looking forward to filling your diagram. That's awesome. Managing time wisely. Great. Think about, there we go, Rich. Think about what you think about when you think. All right. I've got to write that one down. Okay. So when you're meditating, go and think about what you think about when you think. All right. Don't just be blank. I know some people can drive in a car for hours with just blankness. All right. Meditation is good. Great, guys. Thank you for all this. Checking your gratitude levels. Yes. Very good. Checking your gratitude levels. And please, guys, I hope everybody's writing down at least one thing every morning on what you're grateful for. All right. Awesome. One big for me. Oh, okay. When we see people, yeah. Go where you are celebrated, not tolerated. Very biggest, most important lesson, I think, Anthony and I learned, because we noticed if we're in a space where we were being tolerated and we're then trying to force who we are on people, and we weren't called to talk to that group of people, and gracefully remove yourself, go where you're celebrated, because that's where God's going to use you. So I'm just going to share screen again quickly. Then we're landing this airplane, guys. So thank you for your comments. Thank you for your sharing with us what you got out of it. I really do appreciate that. So my training and everything that I do is actually called To Kill a Mocking Mind. And why To Kill a Mocking Mind? If you want to go onto my website, you can go to killamocking.com. And what I focus on a weekly basis is personal growth, leadership development, self-awareness, boundaries, and how we forget to set boundaries, behavior modification, and health. So if you look at tonight's session about purpose, it's all to do with personal growth. It also is to do with leadership development, self-awareness, boundaries, and behavior modification. Not health. We're working on that one. All right. And one day when I'm big and I master health, I'll share with you. But that's the journey. So those are the areas that I try and focus on. And why To Kill a Mocking Mind? Because each and every single one of us have that little voice. And if you're anything like me, you have a choir of voices singing to yourself in your mind every single day. And you find that little voice is more than likely unpacking your life verbally, having verbal conversations in your head, and your mind doesn't know whether it's reality or not. And so you start living it, and then your feelings get attached to that, because the little voice that's in our head is constantly giving us a play-by-play on our days. All right. And also that little voice is describing, explaining, and even commenting on your situations. Ladies, I don't know if it's ever happened to you, but it's definitely happened to me, where I'm driving in the car and I start a conversation with Anthony. And then the voice even sounds like Anthony when it replies back to me. So I have this little narrator going on inside, and I'm having this beautiful conversation. I've solved the story. I've got Anthony's input, and then I go and implement it. And then I say, but I told you so. And he says, no, we didn't even have that conversation. So those little voices, and that's what we've got to learn to take our thoughts captive, all right, because we're thinking the right things. Take our thoughts captive and place them to the right place. And how do we do that? And how do we know? And that's what I do every single week. So sometimes, like I say, my conversations even have outcomes. So the way forward, guys, just so that you know what I do, and I do have permission from Shoal to share this with you, but I do a Mocking Mind 4 sessions once a week, every single month, Tuesdays from 8 o'clock to 9:30. And it is in the form of, like, for example, we would have done purpose, and then we would discuss it afterwards. How can we seriously implement it, or whatever the series we are doing at the moment is quite challenging. No personal information needs to be shared, but just ideas, and it is like our Mocking Mind mastermind. Now, normally it's 7,500, and then Shoal negotiated me to 1,500, which I now also have to put a line through, because he says that you guys are all members. So here we go, guys. I'm going to give it to you. It's 175 Rand a month. You will welcome to try 1 month. If you don't want to continue after that, that's fine. But you know, we do a whole lot of sessions on different things. Like I said, right now we're doing a very deep dive into boundaries, how important boundaries are, how we deal with boundary violators, how we can be boundary violators, how we can be boundary victims, those kind of things. So what I'd suggest you do is, please, only for the MyWealth guys, because Shoal is quite a negotiator, and he's negotiated me down. So it's 175 Rand a month, once a week, Tuesday evenings, 8 o'clock to 9:30. And then I give you the recording. And if there's any material that's attached to it, like everybody who registers before Tuesday evening at 5 p.m., that's Tuesday the 11th, will qualify for the 175 Rand. Now, what you will get is I will then give you the book on how to process your purpose over 30 days. All right, so that will help you to actually go through that whole process. So it's a journal for you to go through, and each day just to challenge yourself, have I asked those questions. So that's me. Thank you so much, Shoal. I want to thank Skulk. Oh, there's Doc right behind me. I want to thank Doc so much for giving me the opportunity to share with you guys. And Rich, thank you so much. I learned so much this evening from your session. And like I said, we didn't know that the two topics were literally going to, well, as you say, setting your purpose is disruptive, because it disrupts yourself completely. So thank you so much for that, Rich. Really appreciate it.
Well, I can just ask that my friend Skulk, just to wrap up in terms of the learnings from Dr. Michelle, and then I will just end off the evening for tonight. Thank you, Skulk.
Thank you very much, Dr. Michelle. That was an awesome session. It's really challenged me to dig deeper, because that question that you've asked, what the world needs and what breaks your heart. I think that's something that a lot of people are sitting with. We looking at the world as it is, and we say, all right, yeah, this thing is really biting at me. This one, it's like you say, your spirit gets irritated by that specific situation. And we expect everybody else to go and do something about it. We expect the government, we expect the next person. We want everybody else to bring the solution, but you are the solution. And I want to challenge every one of you who has listened in tonight that you see yourself as the solution, that your purpose for this season is the very thing that irritates you the most. Now, if it's a small thing that you need that can be changed quickly, then do what your hand finds to do and do something about it. And I like that specific question, because it's something that will make us dig deeper into our souls of exactly what do we have to offer this world. The world needs you. The world is waiting for you to come to the platform, so that the situation or the problems will be solved by you. We have to stop looking around at somebody else. Maybe, who's going to do the job for us? No, who's going to lead us into it? No, you must lead us into it. And this is the message that I got tonight: is put your hands to the plow. Do not look to the left or to the right to somebody else to go and solve the problem. What the world needs and what bites at you the most is something that you probably have a purpose to go and fulfill and meet that need. So let's take that responsibility and let's take that power back into our hands and say, let me make the difference. Dr. Michelle, thank you very much again. It was very practical, something that we can go and think about and really come up with real answers. It's not something that is abstract and out there. That once again, we heard so many teachings about finding your purpose, but at the end, it's like most people feel that it's still out of my reach. This one is center, smack bang in the middle of your reach. It's something that you can go and really think about, pray about, ask God, get the timing right, and then step out in faith. Do something, get into motion, take the decision, go into the direction, and that 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, action. Do that. And I'm sure we're going to change the world in a very, very short space of time if everybody takes that action. Rich, again, thank you very much for the disruptive speech that you gave us. Very disruptive. It was disrupting us very much. We like that. We need to be challenged as leaders, as entrepreneurs, as people who want to change the world. We need to be challenged. And the two guest speakers tonight challenged me, and I'm sure it challenged all of you. But it also gave us some nuggets that we can hold on to and say, all right, now we're going to go think about these things, dig deep into our souls, then take action. Thank you very much for tonight. It was great having some of the people who are closer to our team, also having an IBC, and it was a privilege. Thank you very much, guys.
Thank you.
Thank you, Scott. Right, last, the last thing for me is that the next IBC will be on Thursday, the 3rd of June. That'll be the 3rd of June, again from 7 o'clock to 9 o'clock. Don't miss it. And to all of you, adios. MyWealth loves you. Thank you. Bye-bye, everybody.
Love you all. Cheers, guys. Thanks, guys. Bye.